Okay, let's continue with the small fixes. I have them listed in my note-taking app here. So let's see if we can get through all of them. So the first one is to update Tailwind and make use of the just-in-time compiler. So I started this project right before it was released. So let's go ahead and update our Tailwind version. So the latest version is 2.1.2 at the time of this recording. So let's update our package JSON. Let's look for Tailwind here. And let's update Tailwind CSS to 2.1.2. And this should have the just-in-time compiler within the core. So let's go ahead and npm install. And if you're not familiar with the just-in-time compiler, you can take a look at this link here. And in a nutshell, it generates your styles on demand as opposed to having everything all at once. So that should be installed now. Okay. I think we only have to make one change here. So let's go to our Tailwind config. Actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and npm run dev so you can see the size of the outputted CSS. Okay, as you see, we have our CSS here and it's 2.85 megabytes. So let's go into our code and use the just-in-time compiler. And I think we just have to make one change here. And that is to set the mode to the JIT. Okay. And make sure your purge array is set correctly because this is where it's going to look for files to generate the CSS. So now let's go ahead and npm run dev again and see the file size. There we go. It's 43.7 kilobytes. And just to make sure everything is still working correctly, if we refresh our app here, it still looks the same as before, but now we're using the compiler. So just note that every time you make changes to the CSS, you should run the watcher because it needs to watch for changes and generate the CSS every time you add new classes. So the newer version of Tailwind also has support for blend modes. So let's look for that in the documentation. Let's look for blend here, and you can see the mixed blend mode, and we are using luminosity here. So let's use this instead. So if you don't remember, we're using luminosity for this here. And I'm using an inline style for that because this feature is new in Tailwind. So let's look for that. Ideas index, I believe. It's in a few places. And right here, we're using an inline style. But now we can make use of that new class. So let's get rid of that. And if we save that, you'll see that it's colored now. But if we add that class, it should set the blend mode correctly. Okay, cool. So we also have to do this in, where is it? Idea comments, I believe. Yeah, right here. So we can get rid of this and add this class. And we also have it in our idea notifications or comment notifications. So let's look for that. Okay, let's get rid of it and let's add that class. Okay, next is we have a Firefox CSS issue. This is minor. Let's take a look. I think I have it open here. So this page, you'll see that the border here is incorrect. And since we already have our watcher running, let's go ahead and fix it. So if we go into our CSS file, so app CSS, I believe we just have to get rid of, where is it? Is status update, this border image slice. To be honest, I don't even know what this does, but it does fix the background. So that should compile here. And if we open it up again or refresh it, it works now, and it should still work in Chrome. Let's double check. Back here, I think it's the first comment or first idea here, and it still looks like it works. Cool. Next. Let's do this one next. Let's do this first. We should have the Gravatar image here when we're logged in. That should be easy enough. So back to our code. They should be in app.blade.php, I think. Look for our avatar here. Yeah, so right here, this should just be user get avatar, or sorry, auth user, the logged in user. Get avatar. Okay. Does that work? It does. Next. So now let's do this. So whenever we add ideas or comments, so let's add an idea here. New idea. And whenever we add new lines here, this is my idea. Thanks, Andre. And if I submit this, so for this page, I do want it to appear on one line, so this is fine. But on the actual idea page, I want it to preserve the new lines. So if you look in the database, the new lines actually get stored in the database. So if we go to my client here, check out that idea, and it's sorted by the last ID, should be this one. And you can see the new lines here. However, when we do the double braces in Laravel, it strips them out. So in this case, they should be in idea show. And I'm not sure what I named it. Was it description? Yeah. So whenever we do the double curlies here, it does remove the new lines. So to put that back, we can just not escape it here. Make use of PHP's new line to line break method. And let's also make sure to escape this. So we can use the E method within Laravel and do this. And if you're not familiar with the E function, all it does is run PHP's HTML special chars function. Okay, so let's do the same thing. Actually, let's first check if that works. And now this should be, or this should preserve the new lines, and it does, cool. So let's do the same for comments. So let's add a comment here with some new lines, adding a comment with new lines. So let's post that. And as you see, it strips out the new lines here. But let's go ahead and preserve those. So we can do the same thing. Let's grab this, should be an idea comment. And what did I name it? Comment body. So right here, let's just replace this. Same thing, but it's comment body. Okay. Does that preserve the new line? It does. Cool. So the notifications are fine because I just want that to be on one line. So ideally, I'd probably want to allow the user to write Markdown in here so we can have even more formatting in the ideas and the comments. So this is what the Laracast form does. And I might do this eventually if this app does go into production. Okay, what's next? Fix status test, use count instead. So this is just one of the tests. So I believe it's the status test. Yeah, so for this test, can get count of each status. I'm creating 1 idea for this, 2 for this, 3, 4, 5, for a total of 15 right here. And for some reason, I am doing it manually and not making use of the count functionality. So instead of creating 2 here, I mean, I am creating 2, but I'm doing it manually. So not sure why I did that. We can just use a number in here, which is definitely cleaner. So 3 for this one, as you see. Say 3 here, get rid of these 2. This one has 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's get rid of these 3. Should be 4, okay. And this one should have 5, so we can get rid of these. And we can say 5. Or sorry, this one too. Okay. And now that's much cleaner. Should still pass. And it does, cool. Next. So when we're deleting ideas, we should set the delete or the on delete to cascade. So let's take a look at deleting ideas. So where's that delete idea? Yeah, here. So if you remember, we had to delete the votes and the comments associated with the idea manually. So right here, we're deleting the votes here that belong to the idea, and we're deleting the comments here that belong to the idea. So if I were to comment this out and try deleting an idea with votes or comments or both, then we're going to get an error. So let's try that. This one's fine. Let's refresh. Let's try deleting, and we should get a database error. So like I said, it's probably a good idea to let the database handle this instead of doing it manually in our code. So if we go to our create votes table for the idea here, we can say on delete cascade. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me just copy this actually. Okay, go back here. And for the idea, let's say on delete cascade. And same for comments. So create comments table. So for the idea, on delete cascade. So now if I stop this, migrate fresh seed, now our code should work, but the database is now responsible for deleting any votes or comments associated with the idea. So let's take a look. Let's go back here. And let's go to the main page. And this one has votes and comments. Remember, we commented out the code that does it manually, but it should work now because the on delete cascade is set. So if we go here, we remove these, but it should work now. So let's try that out. Delete. And it does work. Cool. So let's go ahead and remove these lines of code. And I think I'm also using it in the comment notifications test. Let's look for that up here. So yeah, before I delete the idea, I'm deleting the comments. So we don't need this anymore. Let's run this test and it still passes. Cool. Next is admin set status. Don't change status if previous status is the same. Okay, so this has to do with the set status functionality for the admin. So for example, if I were to go here, or anyone actually, if I set the status and the status is the same, and especially if we have this notify all voters feature on, then we don't want to update the user because it's the same status. So right now, this will work even though nothing's really happening. Okay. So let's go ahead and fix that. So that would be in set status. And right here, we can do a check. So let's say if this idea status ID is equal to this status. So if it's the same status, then go ahead and do nothing. So we can just return here and we can emit the event so it shows the notification. So let's just copy this and let's paste that in here. But we want to make it a different event because it's an error. So let's say status was updated error. And let's just say status is the same. Okay. And I'm gonna cast this to an int. Or if you want, you can just use double equals here. So I believe we have to listen for this event. Actually, let's add it first in our, what was it called? Notification success. Okay. So we have to add that new one. So let's put it next to this one here. So status was updated and status was updated error. Okay. And I think we have to listen for that in the idea show component. So if it's here for status was updated, and it is, let's also listen for that new event. Okay, error. And let's duplicate this. Say error. And I think in the set status component, is there something here that closes it? Yeah, there is. So we have to close it. Let's use Livewire on. instead, same thing. And let's go ahead and duplicate this and say error. Okay, if I did that correctly, this should work. So back here, if the status is the same, we should get that error. Idea status ID not found on component. Set status, I think I have a typo. Yes, this idea, sorry. Try that again, refresh. So if it's the same, then status was updated error not found on idea show. I thought I did that. I'm sorry, wrong one here. Status was updated error. Where's that? Status was updated. So right here, let's just duplicate this. Status was updated error. Okay. One more time. Refresh. Same status. Should be an error. And it is. Cool. But does it still work if it's a different status? It does. And again, to make sure it still works, let's try setting it to the same status. Okay. But I want this to be an error message instead. And I already did something similar for error messages, but it's not going to work in this case. So if you remember a few episodes ago, we added something here, I believe, in the app Blade PHP. So yeah, we have this case where it's an error message, and I'm using flash variables here to determine if it is an error message or a success message. But this case only works for error messages after a redirect. As you see, these ones are redirected, so it has a full page refresh. So in this case, in our show.blade.php, where is it here? This notification success always exists on this page. So for our notification success, we need to have a piece of state in the Alpine component instead. So let's do that. So let's say is error. Let's put it after is open. So this will determine if it's an error message or not. And we can keep this so the other error message still works when it's a full page refresh. And we can set is error based on that. So let's say if type equals success, then is error is false. And else if, say type equals error, then is error should be true. And let's end if here. Okay. Now down here, when we are checking which icon to show, so where is it? Down here, we no longer need to check it on the PHP variable, but on the Alpine variable. So we can get rid of this. Okay, get rid of this. But now, so this is the success message icon. So let's say x show equals not is error. Okay, and for the error case, same thing, but obviously is error. Okay, let's try this out. Let's reindent this actually. Okay, let's try this out. Hopefully I did everything correctly. So let's hard refresh. Okay, so this should be an error when I don't change the status here. And it's still green. Did I forget something? Oh yeah, so I forgot to do something here. So now whenever we receive the event here, we have to set whether or not it's an error. So we can say is error is false for these ones. So these are all false, meaning it's a success message. But for this one, it's true because it's an error message. So say true and false for the rest of them. So let's go ahead and add those. Okay, so let's try that again. Hard refresh. Let's check the error case. So don't change the status. And we get error. But let's check the other case when We do change it. And we do get success. Cool. Let's make sure everything else still works. So let's say mark as spam. Okay, so it looks like it does work. And the other case should still be the same. So just to make sure the other case still works. So that's when we delete one of the comments for our notifications. So let me just add a comment for one of my own ideas here. Comment here. So we should have a notification. We do. Let's delete this comment. Okay. And now let's try going to that notification. We should get an error message and it should redirect back to the index page. Okay, so it does work. Awesome. What else here? Make title dynamic on each page. So right now, the title is always Laracast voting. So let's go ahead and make that dynamic. So I want the title to show if we're on the show page. So if we're here, I want this title to show here. So let's do that. So let's go to our layout, app.blade.php. Let's go here. And the title is going to be a variable. So let's say title. But if it's null, we'll just default it to this. Okay. And let's see if this still works. Okay. But now in our show blade, we can add a named slot. So let's go to our show.blade.php and we can do x slot equals title. And we can give it a title here. So let's close that out. And the title can be the title of the idea. So idea title. And we can give it a pipe and say Laracast's voting again. Sorry, there should be name equals title. Okay. Does this work? Yes, it does. Cool. But the home page should just be Laracast voting. Okay, cool. Okay, I think we're on our last point here. Favicon. Not sure what the best practices are for favicons these days, so I just Googled it and I came across this site. So just drop an image here. So let's go ahead and do that. I just stole the one from Laracast's. So I believe it's this one here. Apple Touch icon. Drop it in here. And we can go ahead and download a folder. This should generate the favicon in different formats, and then we can just paste this in to our HTML. So let's do that. So I believe this is the thing we downloaded. Okay. So let's put all of these in our public folder. So I think I have it open here. Yeah, let's just put it in the root public folder, or you can put it in a favicons folder. I'm okay with just putting it here. So let's grab all of this, paste it. Let's replace the current one, and we can add this to our HTML. So I think we have to add it in two places because we have two layouts. So one is app blade PHP, and let's add it after here. Okay. And I think we also have to add it in guest blade PHP. Let's add it here. Okay. So now we should have a favicon. And we do not. Oh, sorry, forgot to save it. Save, hard refresh, and there it is. Cool. So the transparency doesn't seem to be working, but I'm not too concerned about that. I'll fix it if it does go to production. So this should work in this page and also the guest page. Why does this not work? Get avatar on null. Okay, so I thought that was within an auth directive, but I guess it's not. So let's fix this. Get avatar. So let's just wrap this in auth. And auth, okay. Try that again. There we go. And the favicon does show here as well. Actually, it should be here. Yes, it does. Cool. the title is incorrect here. So let's fix that as well. Let's change this to Laracast voting. Okay. Let's go ahead and make sure everything is still working with our tests. Everything is still passing. And that's it for the small fixes that I want to take care of. And this is probably the last episode in terms of coding. I'll do one more wrap-up video where we can discuss everything we've learned and also some more features or potential features that you can continue to do that I have listed in my notes here. And some of these I might do if this app does go into production. So yeah, as always, let's make a commit here. This is episode 66. Episode 66. Small fixes. And I'll see you in the next video where we wrap everything up on this series.